Welcome to the Jersey Score. Rumors about Colorado leaving the Pac-12 for a return to the Big 12 are really heating up. And so we've put together a tiered ranking list of potential candidates for Big 12 expansion from both the Pac-12 and the ACC. Now, we had started doing this by trying to do a weighted ranking based off of athletics, academics, geography, brand, and even size of school, all sorts of metrics, some real Tony Altimore sort of stuff. But it was very time consuming, and ultimately, change could be coming soon. And I think that the more finger to the wind approach that we've taken here is going to get us close enough to the answers of what these definitive scores would have been. So today's approach is more just kind of gut feeling, just our perception. But if you'd like to see a more definitive one, it will take time. But if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. And if there's enough interest, maybe I'll go ahead and do that anyway. But before we get started, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And without any further ado, let's do it. All right, so first let me explain the categories we have not happening. So there's really no scenario in which these schools end up with the Big 12. Then we have, so you're saying there's a chance. Again, I don't really think that these schools, there's a scenario where these schools end up with the Big 12, but it is possible. Then we have our targets, which is really the most realistic schools that the Big 12 should really be thinking about in terms of expansion. And then if there's room, these are other good candidates, just kind of lower priority. So it really comes down to how many of those targets are available and you're able to get, and just how big the conference wants to expand. So if it wants to keep going to 24, and then maybe you pick up a few of those other schools in that category. And lastly, I don't think so, Tim. So those are the schools that just Big 12 shouldn't pursue, shouldn't want, probably aren't a good fit. You get it. So let's start with, first of all, the not happening. Some of these should be pretty obvious. So like Notre Dame is not coming to the Big 12, no matter how you slice it. Additionally, if Florida State and Clemson are able to get out of the grant of rights, the ACC blows up, whatever it is, they are most likely going to have a home with either Big Ten or SEC. I don't see them not making that. Same with UNC. UVA is another one that I think is, like UNC, too good of a fit for either the Big Ten or the SEC. I think they'll be pursued by both. And so I just don't see them falling through the cracks. Even though UVA is not as big a brand as these other ones, I think they'll be desired there. And then so you're saying there's a chance. That's where Miami, I've seen some projections having Miami not getting picked up by either of the two big conferences, maybe because they're not AAU for the Big Ten, and because Florida doesn't want them in the SEC or whatever. And so I guess there's a chance they fall through the cracks that way. But again, I think it's too big of a brand. But if they are available, definitely go after them and get them, and maybe they end up in the Big 12. I just don't see that happening. That's similar with the Northwest schools. I just don't think they're as good a fit for the Big 12, and I don't think they'll really be interested. I think they have every incentive to try to keep the Pac-12 together and stay there, unless they get that call to the Big Ten that they're hoping for. So I wouldn't hold my breath for them, but sure, I mean, maybe the Big 12 is able to sweeten a deal enough, say, hey, wait here until you get that call up to the Big 10. In the meantime, come party with us. That could happen. So I wouldn't rule it out entirely. And, almost left them out. Duke. I think it's too big of a brand. I know it's not football brand, but neither are UNC and UVA. It's a smaller school, but it is AAU. I think still a good fit in either the Big Ten or the SEC. So I don't see them falling through the cracks, but, maybe the others have other priorities. There's only so many slots. Duke doesn't make it there, and the Big 12 comes and says, hey, join us. We're the best basketball conference in the country. Come join us, add to that, and have conference games against Kansas and Baylor and Houston. possibly, other schools like Arizona. So there's always that pitch. So I'd say there's a chance. I just don't really see it. I would love to have him though. And then I want to go to the bottom. I don't think so, Tim. These are schools that just aren't really a good fit. So kind of like UVA, I don't think there's a scenario that even if UVA didn't go to one of the big conferences, I don't think they end up in the Big 12. The difference between Stanford and UVA is I just don't think the Big 12 is really as interested in Stanford either. I think there's just other options, and that goes for Cal as well. I don't think their priority is high enough on their athletics. So they're out of it. Again, we have, Wake Forest is hidden here behind my picture, but too small, good athletics, and they've, they're not trash. I think they're a good addition for a certain conference. I just think there's way too much more value out there in some of these other schools than Wake Forest, and that unfortunately goes for Boston College, who has had some great moments throughout history, but I don't think they should be a priority at this point. And then going for targets, talk about Colorado. They're kind of the school of the hour right now, with the new meeting set up for the week, and everyone, all the rumors that they're going to the Big 12. And so they would not be highest on my list in terms of targets. I think, yes, they're in a good market. How much of that market do they really command? I don't know. What I do really like is that they're out west, which creates a travel partner for BYU and someone else to help fill some of those late night slots. That BYU's doesn't have to fill all of them, or at least on their own. So all those are good things. They don't really have history with BYU, so there's not really that rivalry there that I'm interested in, but they are, as a past member of the Big 12, they have the history there, and they have that fit. And so I think that is definitely going for them. And then I think also their number one thing is that they seem to be the most willing and ready. And so versus all these other schools that are locked up in grant of rights, or trying to make their current conference work, if they really do want to come, I think that's a big advantage. So definitely would not. I think they'd be a great addition to the Big 12, but for everybody that's just losing their marbles over it, I'm not quite as excited about the addition of Colorado, but definitely good get there. Oh, and I didn't even mention Coach Prime. I mean, I would not make this decision based off of him at all. Like, can he help the football program do better? Yeah, probably. Is he going to help the brand? Yeah, absolutely. But there's a chance that he doesn't do well in a few years and you're on to a new coach, or he does really well and then he's gone to another program and you're on to a new coach anyway, and we'll see if they're able to sustain it. So I wouldn't make that too much of a reason for adding Colorado. I'm thinking more long-term. Other four corner schools. So the two Arizona schools, ASU, they're both in Arizona, which is great. Again, all the same reasons I said for Colorado, new market, westward. They have history and rivalries with BYU, which would be great. ASU is bigger, a really big alumni base. Arizona has basketball, although they both have good basketball. But Arizona's I probably wouldn't call them a blue blood, but maybe that next tier right after blue blood. So both of them would be good fits. But again, I put them probably a little ahead of ASU just because if you believe the rumors, they sound a little bit more interested in joining the Big 12. But both would be great additions. And then to hit up the last of the four corner schools, you've got Utah. I don't know how I'd rank them with Colorado. I think Colorado's more realistic. Utah's only coming if the Pac-12, really just does not have a future, and I think if Oregon, Washington leave. So I might put them a little ahead of Colorado. I mean, they don't bring a new market, but just in terms of selfishly wanting to see the Holy War in conference, and obviously having that established, but I think they're less likely. So now moving out east, I think Virginia Tech would be, and Pitt. These would be great additions. Talk about rivalries. West Virginia, it would be throwing them a bone after all those years they spent in the out east by themselves. I'd love to have Tech. Again, selfishly, I live in Virginia. I'd love to have Tech in conference and be able to go to conference games, in state, and see BYU come out from time to time. I think they're two of the bigger brands, better athletics. Pitt, obviously, really good academic. Not that Tech isn't. So they would be great additions. I think there's a good chance that they end up in another conference. At least Virginia Tech, I think, would be a potential SEC, and I think NC State would be another good get for the Big 12. Also, another potential candidate for the SEC, but if available, go after them, and that's, I guess, more or less how I would rank them. Then if there's room, a lot of people have Louisville already, probably would have them in this targets category. I think they're a good fit, obviously rival with Cincy, but Kentucky, not, the hugest market that they'd be able to bring in, and their athletics are good, but not as high as some of these other programs. Even Tech, who's been down as of late, it was traditionally a top 25 team year in and year out. So I think they're kind of, if some of these other schools don't pan out, definitely look at Louisville and Georgia Tech. They bring, they're in Atlanta. They don't really carry the Atlanta market, but they're in Atlanta. They're not the strongest athletics, but great academics. I wouldn't count them out, but I think that they're also another one that is a potential add to either the Big Ten or the SEC. So they may not even be available. They're kind of a lower choice for all these conferences, but so they have a lot of different places where they could end up. I think the Northwest schools would be great adds for a lot of ways. They're all the way in the Pacific time zone, West Coast. If the Big 12 did want to go after Gonzaga, they'd have travel partners there. Great fit. Why not have another Cougar team in the Big 12? And then Syracuse, I think some people might just say don't pursue them, but they are in New York. Not that they carry that whole market, but definitely a great basketball team throughout history. And this last year, their football was improved, so we'll see if they're able to sustain that. So I would still definitely consider Syracuse. I wouldn't put them in the I don't think so category, so consider them there. And again, it really all just depends on just how big, well, one, who's available, and then just how big the Big 12 would like to get. So that's how we'd rank potential candidates for Big 12 expansion from the Pac-12 and the ACC. How about you? Who would you go after, assuming all those schools were available, and who would you like to see in the conference, and just how big would you like to see the Big 12 get? And I didn't even talk about G5 candidates like San Diego State or UConn. Would you rather see them instead of some of these other schools we talked about? Please let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more, and we'll see you next time.